everyone, welcome to another video on Merge Elves. I'm super excited about this video. I recently got my level 3 golden fruit. I don't have any clear space in my camp to grab the ground to move it around. There we go. So I actually got 4 of them, which is perfectly fine. You only need 3 to use the techniques that I'm going to go over in this video. But having more can actually help with some of your bubbling techniques. Because no matter what bubbling technique you're going to use, step 1 is always to have your camp full. And having a bunch of these 2x2 items, like the level 3 golden fruit, will fill your camp up very quickly. So right now, my camp is still pretty small. I only recently started playing, but as it gets bigger and bigger, you can sort of guess that having those 2x2 items to help fill your camp is going to be a good thing. So I'm probably going to make myself a small pile of these bubbled level 3 fruit that I just keep around. So what is bubbling? To get into what this video is really about. Bubbling is the process where you take items on your map and you put them into bubbles so they can float off the edge of your map and not take up squares. Even though this is a huge map, the whole entire game map, early on in your play, you don't have very much healed. Or later in your play, you're going to have a lot of items and hopefully wonders and trees and houses and exciting things all over the place on the map that you want to leave out and displayed. So that means you're going to want to put some things in bubbles. And depending on what merge chain you're working on, you might end up bubbling up the chains you're not working on. So let's look at a couple of the things that I want to bubble. Today, I would like to bubble some of these trophies that I have from events. I want to keep them, but when your elves harvest them, you get point items from whatever the event the trophy came from. So this one is from the forest event, and it gives acorns, which you can merge up into strawberries and ultimately these grapes, and the merge chain goes on and on. This one over here will give you those drinks from the Sea Breeze event, and I've got a couple here from the desert events that give the point items from that event. I think these are the animal ones, if I remember correctly. So, moral of the story here, though, is these don't actually give you anything, these point item events in your camp. You can build them up, and they're cool decorations. Sorry, got that in the way. Oh, nice. We're going to be talking about that in a second. But to get back to what I was saying, I'm not actively working on these. So I don't really want them out in my camp. They're taking up a lot of space, and sometimes they're a distraction if my elves decide to harvest them. So, keeping them in a bubble would be a good thing for me. So those I want to bubble up. Other things that are good to bubble, if you are working on a merge chain that has a lot of large items in it, as you get those large items, you can bubble those just while you're working. So for example, the hills, this one and then these small ones around it are the hill chain. And these can be harvested to get small hills that you combine into bigger and bigger and bigger hills. But because this one takes up 2 spaces, it takes up more of the map. So once I get a 2-space hill, I can bubble this hill, get some more of this level, and then merge it together. So instead of it taking up 10 squares on my map while I'm working on it, I can have these in bubbles off to the side and only unbubble them when I'm ready to do my 5 merge. Other chains that have those larger items include the stone chain. Let's see, this one is the level 8 of the stones, but the level 9 and the level 10 both take up 2 by 2 spaces. And the wonder on this one, I expect, is even going to take a 3 by 3. We'll see for sure, but you can see how having those things out in your camp takes up a lot of space. So being able to bubble those is really handy. Another thing that you can use bubbling for is if you are waiting to do a particular thing and you want to collect something. So say you want to collect a bunch of fruit because you want to gem harvest your fruit, but you don't have a lot of space right now. So you just want to do it a little bit at a time, or maybe you want to save that fruit to merge later when all of your elves are sleeping. You can also do that sort of saving things for later with these mushroom houses. Once I merge these level 3 mushroom houses into the level 4, they're going to start sprouting bushes, which is fine, except I don't necessarily want to take up all of the space for, not bushes, berry trees, sorry. I don't necessarily want to take up all my space with berry trees and berries. However, if I keep just saving these level 3, eventually my map is going to be overrun. So there are a couple of techniques that let you bubble things in different ways. But like I already said, step 1 is always to have your map completely full. And while I've been talking, my industrious little elves have been running around and filling up the map. And you can tell your map is full because you'll have elves holding things, but they can't set it down. And the reason they can't set it down is there's no space. Even though we have these 2 open squares, the map always has 2 open spaces that it doesn't consider to be spaces. I'm not sure why the game is set up that way, but it is. So that works out nicely. So we're going to go over a couple of bubbling techniques here, and the last amazing one I'm going to show you is using those 2 by 2 golden fruit to bubble anything that you want to put into a bubble. But let's take a look at the first technique. This first technique is really good for, like I mentioned earlier, if you are harvesting and you want to save up the thing that you are harvesting. I'm going to do it with fruit because, hey, why not? But anything that you can harvest. Oh no, the fruit is actually harder to do because as soon as there's fruit on the tree, if you try and tap it, it will tell you there's not enough space, so it won't let you clear out the tree to then be able to harvest it. So we could do this with orbs, but I'm not really saving up orbs right now. I do like these elf trees, so let's do the elf trees. So what you're going to notice when I tell my elves to come harvest these elf trees, any elf that's not already holding something is going to come over to help harvest. But they don't have anywhere to go to set their item down, so they're just going to hang out there. Well, if you keep double tapping to harvest, your elves will keep coming over. So the question becomes, what happens to elves like these who are already holding something? You just keep doing this. And eventually it will get so all of your elves are holding something. And once you have a situation where all of the elves in your camp who are out, the ones that are sleeping in the house are not going to pop out to do this. There we go. So all of my elves were holding something, but then I said, hey, harvest this. And the thing that one of my elves was holding popped into a bubble. So now I have this mushroom in a bubble that I can put anywhere, and I can keep doing this. I mean, it's getting really crowded right here, but you can see everything that they're holding is going into bubbles. So you can use this technique to bubble any item that is harvested. We could do this with berries, at least until the bushes wanted to start spitting out berries on their own. Orbs are really good to harvest and store this way. This also works really well with these stones. And another thing, once you have gotten to this point where all of your elves are holding something, if you tap on one of your elves, it will drop what it's holding into a bubble. So we can tap all of these guys and get everything that they're holding in bubbles. Just move them right out of the way there. And yeah, so what we end up with are a bunch of mushrooms in bubbles that we can unbubble later when we are ready to work on those mushroom houses. All the bubbles. So that's actually a pretty fast technique. Let's see. Oops. Get you out of the way. Last one right there. All right, so that's actually a pretty fast technique for putting orbs and harvestable items into bubbles. Apparently these were harvested from something. So we'll come back to those. So that's technique number 1. Technique number 2, which is also incredibly helpful, is the ability to bubble things that are larger than 1 square just by moving things on top of them. So that can be used when you have these merge chains with large items that you want to store. So the way to do this is, with your map full, you want to pick up any 1 by 1 item and set it on top of the item you want to bubble. If there's an open space for it to go to, it will jump to that open space like you just saw. However, if there's no open space, it pops into a bubble. And there it is. So I can store my hills, I can store my high-level stone, and when I'm done with all of this merging that I want to do, I can even store all of my golden apples and just find a place to keep them off the edge of the map and have them there to use when I'm ready to merge things. Of course, as soon as you do this, it's going to open up space on your map, and your elves are going to try to set stuff down. So if you are continuing to merge, you're going to need to fill that space back up, either by having your elves harvest and drop some more things, or by opening some more of these golden fruit. I think I keep calling them golden apples still. That's what they're called in Merge Dragons. They are golden fruit. So that is another really great way of bubbling if you have something that you want to do that with. I actually want this out of the bubble because I can't harvest these low level hills, so I want this hill out here so I can get some stuff. So I'm going to do a couple of quick merges to make space. Ooh, don't make mistakes. There we go. All right, so now that there's space, I can unbubble this. And I'm just going to put this right back where I want it, over here by my other hills. And because I have this space before I can continue bubbling, I need to fill it in. If you don't have a lot of elf power, a really easy way to fill your camp up fast is by opening chests. Because when a chest is opened, now what used to take up one space is going to take up however many spaces of the items inside it. Grab my daily chest, open that up. That helped a little bit. You can also tap on things like the berry trees or the fruit trees that, spit things out onto your map. And that will save elf power or stamina while you are putting things in bubbles. Let's see. So we covered harvesting. We covered the larger items. The last technique. Well, okay, before I get there, I feel like it bears saying that when you bring things back to your camp from levels and from events, they're already in bubbles. You can always just take those loot orbs and put them off to the side somewhere, and they will sit there indefinitely forever until you are ready to open them. So that's another way of having bubbles and using bubbles to manage the space in your camp. Now we're going to get to the more advanced technique. This is how to use your 2x2 item to bubble absolutely anything. Doesn't matter what it is, what shape it is, what size it is, nothing. So the setup for this, you want to get the things that you want to put into bubbles, and you want to put them in a 2x2 row. So for example, I want to bubble both of these desert nests. So I'm putting them side by side going up and down, not side by side going sideways. Side by side going up and down. I also want to bubble these forest elf sanctuaries and this little nest in this other sanctuary. I would like to bubble my party bushes, and ultimately I'm going to bubble this one also. I'm not sure if I have a second thing to put next to it, but that's fine. So I'm going to move these guys over a little bit. Oh yeah, and I have something else that I want to bubble here. I want to bubble these sprouts. These sprouts are specifically from the Halloween event, so I think they're super adorable. I'm so excited to have them in my camp and know I'm going to be able to build those Halloween trees. But one little drawback to them is they don't play with the regular sprouts. You can't merge them with the regular ones. So right now, until I get more of them, these two are just taking up space and quite frankly confusing me because I keep trying to merge them with the other sprouts or the other saplings. So I'm going to put them in bubbles until I get more of them. So I've got my saplings, I've got my sanctuaries and my nests, I've got the bushes, and then I have this one cottage, all in this 2x2 row. Now what I need to do is take my golden fruit, and I need at least 2 of them that are side by side, touching each other. They could be off kilter from each other like these two are. The point is, if you pick up a third one and put it over the top of them, are they going to try to merge together? If that will happen, then it's an okay setup. So you want them side by side touching each other. And then, of course, you need a third one to set on top of them. The reason I like to use the golden fruit instead of other 2x2 mergeable items is most of those other items are part of a merge chain, and they tend to be very high level parts of those merge chains. So I don't want to risk accidentally dropping this item and merging these three, because we are not going to merge these three golden fruit. We're just pretending to. So, I do not recommend using anything that you really don't want to lose. And if I lose a couple of these fruit, that's fine. I've got my golden trees over here. I can make more. So that doesn't bother me. All right, so once you have this set up, all of the items you want to bubble in a 2x2 line, your golden fruits set up in a way that you can trick it into thinking it's going to be merged. The next thing you need to do is have at least 4 of your elves holding something. Depending on how many times you're going to bubble, it's not even a bad idea to just have all of them holding something. When I do this, sometimes I like to use stone, because then when I'm done bubbling, I have that extra resource. And so because our map is full, our elves are just going to stand there wondering where they can set things down. Well, as soon as you pretend you're going to merge these items, it tells the elves that those 4 spaces that it used to sit in are available to set stuff down. So you've got the 4 spaces that the golden fruit were in, and then you have the 2 normal open spaces on the map. And your elves will move around just like mine are doing now and set things down until there's only 2 spaces left. So I'm still holding this. We are not going to merge this golden fruit. What we're going to do now is set this golden fruit on top of the things we want to bubble. So the parts that get bubbled when you set this down on something are going to be the column to the right. So if I set this down, for example, right here, it would bubble those 2 bushes, and the 2 nests would go flying into the 2 open squares that are somewhere else on the map. Because I don't want to lose those 2 nests, I'm not going to drop it right here. I'm going to come over to the very beginning of my line. The lithops and the drink, I don't care if they go flying to some empty squares on the map. That doesn't bother me. But the way I have it lined up, this is going to bubble those 2 saplings as soon as I let go of it. So, letting go of it, ta-da! My saplings are now in bubbles. And those 2, the lithop and the drink, have flown over here. You can't really see them because there are elves in the way, but they've filled in the 2 empty spaces that were right there where the elves are. Now, because I have more to bubble, I'm just going to keep doing that, and I'm going to work my way down the line, checking to make sure I have enough elves holding things. Maybe I'll get somebody over here, pick up some hills. And the next thing I want to do is that sanctuary and that nest. So I'm going to pick up this golden fruit, come back over, pretending I'm going to merge it. I am not dropping it, still holding it, while my elves move over, and they are going to be able to set down 2 items. 1 and 2. And now the 2 spaces that are still left open right there are the 2 that are always open. So you'll see those aren't being filled in. The elves are standing there like, what the heck? We're still out of room. What's the matter with you? I'm going to bring this over and set it down so the things I want to bubble are in that right-hand column and drop it. And there they are, my sanctuary and my nest. And I can keep doing this all day long. They just dropped 2 things. I'm going to bring this over. There we go. 2 sanctuaries. After you've done it a couple times, keep in mind that you need to have elves holding things. So if you do this several times in a row, you just want to periodically stop and tell elves to go pick things up. That way you always have elves holding something. So I'm going to come back here. They dropped those. Get my other 2 nests bubbled. Wait for my elves to move out of the way. There we go. And if you want to set this up in a way that your elves aren't hovering over your workspace, you can always set this fruit down someplace away from where you're working and then hover over like you're going to merge, and they'll move out of the way so you can see the things you're working on. Dropped. They can't put anything in those last 2 spaces. So I'm going to come on over. I have my party bushes bubbled. Whoops, not you. The bubble. There we go. And then for this last one, I only have the cottage that I want to bubble, but using this technique, you always end up with 2 bubbles. You can just unbubble this grass afterwards. Yeah, you know what? You guys can come on over. Dropped 1 item, dropped 2 items. Awesome. I'm going to go like that. I'm going to bring my cottage down here to store, and then I'm going to put this bubble someplace else so I remember that I want to unbubble it right away. Because I wasn't planning on bubbling that. And you can do this as much as you want. I have not found, so in Merge Elves, obviously this is my first time really bubbling because I have my golden fruit. But in the other Merge games I play, I have not found a limit to the number of bubbles that I can have. So feel free to bubble as much as you want. I will say, the more bubbles you have in your camp, it can slow your game down, because when you go into your camp, instead of just loading the normal amount of items that should be here on the map, it also has to load those extra items that you have in bubbles. So keep that in mind. But yeah, so that is how you bubble. Multiple techniques for bubbling. Let's see. I'm pausing for a moment because while I was talking earlier, I remembered another way of getting things into bubbles. Oh, yes. So I'm sort of showing these techniques in the order from the safest and easiest way to do it to the progressively more difficult way. So putting things into bubbles using these 2x2 items, you do always risk accidentally merging your 2x2 items, which, you know, you can make more of those. It's a little annoying, but it's still fine. With moving an item to bubble larger items like that, you're never going to lose anything. You might accidentally bubble something you didn't mean to, and then you have to move stuff around and unbubble it. And then with the first one, the harvesting, that's never going to cause a problem. This next technique that I'm going to show you very much has the ability to cause problems. So I recommend practicing with things that you don't care about, like maybe life flower sprouts or berries. We have a lot of these life flower sprouts. So say I only have one thing I want to bubble, and I don't want to fill my whole camp up and go through all of that mess to do this. Here's a technique to bubble anything that is mergeable. So you have to be able to merge it without any other setup. You pick up the item with one finger and you hover it like you're going to merge it. Do not take your finger off the screen of your device. If you are on a computer, do not unclick the mouse. With your other hand, you want to click the world map button to leave camp. Keep your finger on the screen. You want to keep your finger on the screen until this world map page stops loading. Then you can pick your finger up. Now we go back into our camp. And if we did it right, yep, that thing that was hovering in the air that we were holding is now in a bubble. Because when you leave camp, the camp goes, well, it's not in a square on the map. I have to put it somewhere. It goes into a bubble. This technique is very helpful for things like gems. Here, I'll do a gem. So I've picked up this blue gem, holding my finger down, not picking it up at all. Click on the world map with a different finger. Out to the world map, wait till everything stops moving. Now I lift up my finger, go back into my camp like normal, and there it is. That gem is now in a bubble. I like to use this one on eggs. So if I was storing eggs in bubbles, anytime you have 3 or more of the same kind of egg, you can easily bubble it like this. Why? Oh, actually, I just realized. So here's the reason it's not working for me right now. In my settings, I have this set to prefer to merge 5 eggs. So that means if it's not 5, I can't make the merge. So to bubble eggs this way, you have to go in and turn that setting off if you have it turned on. So that's out in the world map, down in this little gear in the lower left-hand corner. And down here where it says require overlap, if you have that turned on, that's what lets you set items next to each other and have them not merge. I always say allow chain reactions off. That way I can't do accidental merges. And then this last one, prefer ELF 5 merges. It will only let you do 5 merges with your eggs and with your elves. I strongly recommend it. For this demonstration, I'm turning it off. I'm going to come right back and turn it back on. But for this, turning it off for a moment, heading back into my camp. And this is the most dangerous because this is where you could accidentally do a 3 merge with your eggs. If something goes wrong, the egg or the item that you're holding ends up dropping and merging. So if that happened with sprouts, I wouldn't care very much. If that happens with eggs or my golden leaves, I'm going to be more upset about that, right? But so anything that you have, I'm doing the mystery eggs because those are fairly easy to get a hold of. You hover it over, holding it, do not let go. Go back out to the world map. Everything is still, so now I'll pick up my finger. Go back to camp. There we go. And because I still have 3, I can do it again. There we are. So I could go through and bubble all of these eggs that I have multiple of this way. But you have to have 3 or more. Like with these 2, I can't make a merge, so I can't use that technique. But this is where I could then use the 2x2 golden fruit technique to finish bubbling these, if I wanted to. I don't put my eggs in bubbles. Okay, to be fair, I go back and forth about whether or not I put my eggs in bubbles. Sometimes I do, sometimes I decide I don't want to. If anything went wrong with bubbles, eggs are the last thing I would want to lose. I would be quite upset to lose eggs. Anything else, I can rebuild. I mean, if it's a high-level thing, I might be annoyed for a few seconds, but the point of this game is to build things. So, while we don't want to lose the stuff that we have created, it's okay. You know? It's okay. It's happened to me a couple of times, and it was all okay. But the eggs, those take time, they cost money, they go into your elf power. Like, the eggs are very important in my mind and definitely worth safeguarding and taking up the map space to make sure that they are going to be safe and not lost or harmed in any way. So that's my opinion. I know some people bubble all of their eggs. And like I said, sometimes I go through phases where I bubble all my eggs too. So one last thing to add to the end of this that I discovered, I was actually just starting it up to record this, and something awesome happened. Let's see, did I bubble my lithops? No, I didn't. All right, so in one of the recent events, the trophy item was this pile of lithops. And I believe it was the Skylark Gobi event. Yes, Skylark Gobi event. And if you watch an ad, when the ad is over, it will give you several of these small lithops that you can then harvest here in your camp. You can also merge them. I haven't actually saved them up to have 3 of the same color to merge and see what happens, but you can tell by the white border that they are mergeable. But when you harvest them, you get seeds and sprouts. And one thing that happened right at the beginning of me recording this was I got a new kind of seed. And I'm just seeing if I'll get another one. If not, that's fine. I have it in my book that I can show you. Yeah, no, didn't get another one. So that's fine. The seed makes this sprout right here. And it's called a seed of sakura tree. It's really pretty. It's this nice textured seed with some sakura petals around it. And while it was sitting there while I was recording, it sprouted into a sakura tree sprout. And if we look over to the level 4 description, it says the sakura blossoms in full bloom. get falling Sakura and chance to get Sakura elf egg every day. So I'm really excited about this. It's a new kind of elf and 2 new merge chains because we have the Sakura trees merge chain and it says get falling Sakura, which makes me think that the Sakura flowers or petals or whatever themselves are going to be able to be harvested, or maybe they'll fall off the tree. I don't know, but we'll get to hopefully merge those together and discover more awesome and amazing things. Yeah, super excited about the idea of this Sakura elf. When I was a teenager, I was definitely an anime fan, completely into Japanese culture. I've actually traveled to Japan. It was one of my favorite vacations I've ever taken. It was amazing. So the idea of having these beautiful Sakura trees here in my camp in Merge Elves is very exciting to me, and I'm really looking forward to it. So that was a little addendum. Before I forget, and before you forget, we want to go back to the world map, and we want to change that setting back to prefer elf 5 merges. There we go. That way we don't accidentally merge any, do any 3 egg merges. That's not the kind of life we're into here. So that is my how to bubble things video. There are still more things on my map that I would like to bubble up, like these grapes and these little items here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that after I sign off. And once again, super excited about this. And all of those adorable little slimes. So yes, you guys have a great time using these techniques, getting things in bubbles. Good luck. And some of these take a little bit of practice, but once you get used to it, it's second nature. Bubbling is an amazing strategy in these games. So good luck and happy merging. And I will talk to you folks again before too long. Bye.